another project that's on my list. Sometimes I'm a klutz. I like to set my super glue bottles on the bed of the lathe, and it seems that every so often I forget they're there and I have a habit of knocking them on the floor. Well, I've come up with a little way of making a little stand that I think will be quite fine, and that utilizes spice jars. That little spice jar is made of a high density plastic that super glue doesn't even want to stick to. So we're going to use a couple of these, put them in a block of wood, and that's going to be our holder. So we'll put it in the chuck. Don't have to tighten it down real tight, just make sure it's in there solid. Leave the lid on. The lid is going to give you the strength so that the jar does not collapse. Just going to take a skew. And we've cut our cap off. While it's there, I'm going to take a small gouge and just clean up the edge, a shear cut, or take a piece of sandpaper. You could do that, just so there's no ragged edge on it. And now we have the beginning of our little glue holders. I have a little board that I decided to use. Figured out what I would like for a size. Found the center. Working off the center, I went to both holes. That way you could keep them uniform. Another thing that I like to do, I like to have a stop on the back so that all they have to do is slide this on a straight surface, and it keeps them all in relation to the center line. Just one of those little things that I picked up over the years. Now to set that, I have a pointer that I have made, and it just has a nice 60-degree point, and it allows me to pick up anything I want and to set like this board. Every once in a while, something good has to happen to everyone. And in this particular project, those little spice jars happen to be a press fit into an 1 3/4 hole. So I'm going to use a Forstner bit and drill those holes. I have drilled my holes, and rather than worrying about a certain depth, what I did was worried about that my bit just broke through the very bottom. Now, this is not going to help me from being a klutz and knocking this off the lathe, but what I intend to do is put a couple of little rare earth magnets in here to help hold it on the lathe for me. And they are going to be the holes that I use to drill. Still working off the same side that I drilled on the opposite side, I'm using a 1/4-inch bit, and I'm going to pick up the center of that hole and just drill a 1/4-inch hole. Now we have a 1/4-inch hole on the inside of each one of our large holes. I have 3 little 1/4-inch rare earth magnets, And I'm going to stick one in each one of these holes. Now, just to make sure that they're not above the surface, I want them to be flat. Now I'm going to take a little bit of super glue and just adhere those to my board. Now that I've used a little bit of super glue to hold those magnets in, I'm going to take my cut off spice jars and put them in the holes. Then we can set in our glue bottles and accelerator. Now, you can still move them with no problem, and yet they're holding onto the lathe, or the other way also. So now you have a glue setup that's kind of stable and kind of neat. Hope that puts a little bit of spice into your next project.